Hi, my English 111ers, and welcome to week 8. We're about halfway through, so it's really exciting as we're progressing and moving into some different skill sets. I look forward to reading your community essays this week and seeing what you all discussed about your community. I very much enjoyed your pitches, so I can't wait to see what that turns out to look like. So without further ado, let me go ahead and go through some housekeeping, and then I'll give you a little lesson on the readings for the week. All right. So for this week, we're kind of continuing in on our literature and discussing some more literature today. Give us a little bit of a break from heavy duty research. And so there are a couple things that I want to show you in regards to just the schedule for the week. The first thing I want to remind you all of is to go through the modules. And so if you click on the week that we're on, you're going to see all of the tasks for the week here in order. And so I don't know if everybody is looking just at like the to-do bar or what is going on, if you're missing some things, but I've definitely gotten some emails from people and I wonder if you're not seeing all of the materials. So it is always a good idea to start with this box up here because it kind of gives you like a little bit of an overview of what's going on in the week. And I shuffled the week around just a little bit because of our community essay getting delayed. So I did want to take some time to kind of walk you through this week so that everybody's on the same page. So the readings for this week are links. If you have any trouble with the links, please let me know. But there is a Lucis Naturae by Margaret Atwood, The Yellow Wallpaper, there's a reason there's no link, Why I Wrote the Yellow Wallpaper, and Goblin Market. So there are a couple of resources here. One is the online staged reading of Goblin Market. I do suggest that you listen to it while you read along with it because it does sound very different. And it's coming from the pre-Raphaelites and the Christina Rossetti and her voice of like post-Victorianism. So it does kind of have a difference of a cadence if you listen to it. So I do suggest that. And then I have an optional reading here about Gilman and her Gothic allegory regarding the yellow wallpaper. It's a fascinating piece. And so I do suggest that you take some time to like read through that if you're interested. But it is not required for the assignments, but it is really interesting. Okay, so what you're going to be doing this week is I want to clarify a couple things regarding Harmonize. So Harmonize, when you click on your assignment for the week, it's going to ask you to annotate the yellow wallpaper with your group. So, and with your group, I mean your class. So Harmonize has a collaborative annotation tool. And so what I use this for, and I know that you've used it a couple times, but just to kind of make sure that it's clear, is that these are places for you to read the text and interact metacognitively, and that kind of simulates being in a real class discussion. So really take time to think about the short stories, the poetry, and then also elements of like literature and theme that pop up in these different pieces and then interact. So right now I see Heather has the first comment here. I'm sorry to use you as an example here, Heather, but like she has highlighted here and she's also given a response. So they don't have to be super long, but these are places for you to interact with the text with your colleagues so that you can get understandings together as opposed to doing it only by yourself. And then I want to revisit two things. One is your reading response. So this reading response is going to be one of the first ones that you have done. We did a little bit of a warm-up version of this and a couple weeks ago before we got into the community paper. And so now that you have a pretty strong grasp of MLA, what you are going to do with the reading response is that you are going to respond to two of the pieces from this week and discuss themes that you see in both. and how identity is defined in one or both of the short stories. I say wallpaper lusus naturae. If you would like to do a different one, that's okay too. The point of these like short responses is that they are 1 page long. They're 1 page analyses, and they are going to use something called the CER method. And the CER method is where you analyze with claim, evidence, and reasoning, and you discuss it, but it's only in a page. So when you're thinking about it, I want you to think about it as if you would be like writing in a really controlled way, but you're only going to shrink it down into a page of writing. So, for example, right here, this is my thesis for my example. While Mrs. Dalloway, through stream of consciousness and alternating perspective, can reveal what lies beneath the surface of a smile from those in the upper echelons, the most exciting moments arise from a character's lack of understanding of their thoughts and emotions. So that is my thesis. And then as you read through this piece, I go into more distinct examples and then I cite them and I pull some quotes. But as you see, they are not full quotes, they're partial quotes. And then I parse them out and I elaborate on what they mean in an overall context. And so it does, this one leaks over like a little bit on the page, but your goal is to get it to 1 page. Why would you make us do this? Okay, so the reason why I have you do this is that it's a little bit more formal than a discussion board, but it is less formal than a paper. So what we do here is we're starting to work on control of our writing. We're starting to work on control and our precision, just like we would with rhetorical work. So what I want you to think about is not, oh my God, I have to write a whole paper, but I want you to think about is what is one thing from these stories this week that I really want to explore, and then how can I explore them while using evidence and exploring some reasoning. So don't let this stress you out so much as give you the opportunity to like really bone up on those skills of your writing. These reading responses are core assignments. So because they're core assignments, you can always revise them. And they are a way to like really practice those skills in a more low stakes way. And so those are the tasks for the week. The other thing that I wanted to bring up to you is that we are going to start having our presentations that will begin in week 10. And so if you haven't had a chance to visit this document, this is your rhetorical situation presentation. And so one of the primary objectives for English 112 is to have a strong grasp on rhetorical situation and argument. And so as we further develop those skills in the next couple of weeks, what I want you to think about is you are going to be going into more detail about a topic that you're going to research for your argumentative essay at the end of the year. That being said, you can definitely do a presentation on something that is outside of your research if you would prefer to do that. I would like it to be just tangentially connected so that you're not doing extra work. I would like you to do something that explains your work to the class rather than trying to bone up and do something completely different. And so you may not even be to the point where you even want to think about the final yet, and that is totally understandable. But some of you will probably be presenting sooner. And so those of you who are presenting sooner, you need to be thinking about what topic you might want to explore over the next 8 weeks in presentation form and then in paper form. And if you're like, oh my God, what do you mean? There's a final. If you go click on the core assignments here, you're going to see all the links for the different pieces that we're doing. So the next piece that we're going to do is our collaborative research. And then your final exam is going to be an argumentative essay. So I don't really care what your topic is for the argumentative essay. The only component that really has to be sound is that it's got to be a rhetorical situation and it has to be arguable. So you can take that and you can make your presentation related. You can make your presentation related to something that we're doing with our collaborative research. Anything that you would like to do is fine. I would only suggest that you try not to do like a third topic because you might get exhausted on how many things you're exploring. So this is going to be more of a multimedia presentation. And then when we get into week 10, you won't be able to see some of this, but like what we're going to have in week 10 is we're going to have student-led discussions on topics. And then we're going to be responding to those topics when we get into week 10. And to remind you of what were some of the requirements for that, if you click right here on the presentation sign up, you're going to see that the first group of people that have signed up for week 10 are Abby, Elizabeth, Trinity, and Andrea. So if you signed up for week 10, then you're going to be posting your presentation first. And so just kind of be aware that you need to start thinking about what your topic is and putting it together for everybody else starting. And I would say next week, week 9, is where I would definitely start putting that together. Okay. So on that note, is those are things that are as they're coming. And so for this week's tasks, we are going to be exploring the Gothic allegory and some of our Gothic writers. So I'm going to go ahead and start, and I'll try not to make this too much longer because I know that these things can go for a long time. So some themes that we're going to kind of explore with these pieces is that you're going to see independence and conformity, watching, being watched, freedom and confinement, internal versus external, and rebellion versus complacency. And then they're all feminine voices. And so all of these are going to be feminine perspectives of different social situations that women were put into in the 19th century and then early 20th. All right, so Goblin Market is the first piece, and it is a poem by Christina Rossetti. It was written as a Pre-Raphaelite, part of the Victorian movement, and it was inspired as our author, Christina Rossetti, was working at Mary Magdalene Penitentiary for Fallen Women. And so there was this notion of the fallen woman, or the woman who has taken the fruit, and like this corruption, right, of innocence. And so you're going to see that in Goblin Market. But a lot of the pieces in Goblin Market, it's like there's this like youthful naivete and like what role the goblins have as like these members of like the outside society. So there are some different scholarship that's come out. Some different scholars like feminist and gender studies have looked at the Mad Woman in the Attic dichotomy with Goblin Market as an exploration of women's roles in male-dominated society. There are psychoanalytic approaches of subconscious and symbolic nature of the goblins and their fruit. And not only that, but there's also like theological interpretations about like where is the self-sacrifice and the religious iconography. And then some people have even had like queer theory and LGBTQ readings of the piece. So I look forward to seeing how you all interpret it as well. And so some questions as you're reading it is like, are the goblin men lusus nocturae? And that's from the other piece that you're going to read today. So how do they transform? What are they supposed to be? Besides what the goblin men look like, what is the stranger danger with them? And so like, what are the symbolic natures behind these goblins? Okay, and then let me go ahead and skip through. I'm gonna bring up yellow wallpaper. Pardon me while I get it up for you. Okay. Well, some of these, I thought I had more on yellow wallpaper, but yellow wallpaper is also a really popular piece that you'll read a lot. But so there are some themes on this PowerPoint that I use in class, but I want you to definitely think about female body in yellow wallpaper, point of view, especially with the yellow wallpaper, and then also about madness, confinement, female roles, rebellion, complacency, whether or not the female narrator is mad, her interactions with her husband in the story, how she is isolated from the outside forces, and then the outside forces are also inside forces, and how she starts seeing things in the wallpaper, and how it makes sense for her to interact in this internal female space and then this external male space, and the psychology of that. And I do look forward to seeing what your annotations look like for the yellow wallpaper, because I feel like you're going to have a lot of these things to come and say. And then bring in Atwood's Lucis Naturae. It'll be a really interesting conversation piece of like how they work together to tell these different feminist stories. So I hope that that gave you a good introduction for this week, and laid out kind of like what the next few weeks look like. I'm really loving what you all are coming up with and some great thoughts here. And I look forward to seeing more. Reach out to me if you have any questions. Have a good one. Bye.